Well, hello everyone. Greetings to my channel, and I'd like to take this time to address the U.S. invasion of Venezuela. The recent U.S. military operation in Venezuela on January 3rd, which resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, was justified by the Trump administration based on two primary rationales. It was a law enforcement operation to capture him and other officials indicted in the 2020 on federal drug trafficking and narco-terrorist charges, seizing control of the oil reserves here to run the country temporarily and ensure a transition, with President Trump stating the U.S. would use the oil to pay for the reconstitution efforts. Now, you take that on face value, and it sounds like we just did this back in 2003. Holy moly, mother of God. You know, I served in the military for 27 years, and during that time, I've deployed to 3 combat zones and been on several peacekeeping missions. And this is just right out of the playbook of, the Republican seizure of countries. I mean, Trump, drove his whole theme of being elected of not starting any new wars. You know, pointed at Biden for how he messed up the exit of fuck. Okay, never mind. Here's where I'll go. When the president stood up in that press conference and said that we are managing this until the government can be stood up and brought back, all those members of Bush said the exact same thing. There's not much you can do here, except, we've got to, raise up our voices and be heard, because if we don't say something, the silence is going to be deafening, and it's going to be a very much of a struggle for our country, especially that the burden of the cost of all this is coming on the backs of middle-class Americans, for us being the taxpayers. It's more than just a risk when you start to look at it when you're going to manage the government and oil. It doesn't make sense at all to start a crackdown on drugs, coming to the United States from Venezuela, and all those people killed on those boats, which are not given due process for whatever reason the president deemed necessary to kill them all. Not one of those people we can verify that was a real drug dealer, and if they're really going to the United States. And how in the hell on a little boat you're going to get that far? It doesn't pass the common sense test. You got to work at this, not about really being the oil. You got to realize the president wants control of the status of the petrodollars that's being managed. This is extreme risk of the petrodollar at this time, because it's what the BRICS nations established their own unit of currency to replace the petrodollar back in December. And want to be able, as the BRICS want to do, is to just squeeze out the U.S. dollar being used for buying oil. And then, look at on top of this, the longer pole in the tent is Cuba. Once Venezuela is taken out and no longer part of the game, their objective is to crush Cuba and put another government in, and it can be done very easily. And look at it, if this other government in Venezuela is not playing the game, and they don't like what the U.S. is doing, we're going to start seeing hits on U.S. troops there. We're going to start seeing all this infrastructure being attacked and destroyed, exactly what we had in Iraq in 2003, 2004. And they're going to have an insurgency going on that's going to end up being very costly. And who bears the cost? The U.S. taxpayers pay the cost of that. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is a Cuban American. He's had a strong interest in making sure Cuba has the regime changed from a communist country to some form of democracy. All these efforts by the president and others just line their pockets with money. The people that really pay for all these military operations, again, is the U.S. taxpayers. This is unjust. It really is. We all have to, rise up and say something about it. But this means with all this going on, none of them are concerned about the healthcare crisis, which is now. Now needs to be time to fix that. It should have been even before, but it's like they're moving the goalpost each and every time across the way. Move it, move it, move it. I mean, don't pay attention to anything that's going to take care of the American people and their problems. Our problems mean nothing. I mean, soldiers die in this operation. Trump doesn't care. He thinks anybody who died for the country is a sucker and a loser. The president would manage the country and their oil until another time that somebody can take it over. I don't think it's going to happen. Look at how long we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh my God! In the meantime, the boots on the ground will cost us in treasure because it's no different what happened in 2003 when President Bush invaded Iraq. We got the same thing all over again. The conditions are set. We're going to have a lot less blood at this point as it is, but they might look at this and say, oh, it's too easy. We're going to do it again with Cuba. My God, this is horrendous, and we need to stop it. Let's look at the controversy and the criticism of all this. The legality is that they're trying to say that, it was just an arrest. That's kind of an excessive force for an arrest. I mean, many are calling an act of war and a violation of the UN Charter, but Trump doesn't care about the Charter of the UN. He told them all a bunch of scumbag countries and stuff. And the thing is, this is just more than just a law enforcement operation arrest. They're going to change the regime, make them puppets of the U.S. government to do what they want. Now, some of the U.S. lawmakers and international observers expressed concern that U.S. actions provided dangerous precedents for other nations like China and Russia to justify their own military actions. We just opened up that Pandora's box there. And the thing is, there's people asking, why wasn't Congress involved? And they're saying, oh, well, they didn't. If we let Congress know, they would squeal and let everybody in the media know what's happening and cause more deaths and troops on the ground. Bullshit. Oil access. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves. Okay, and the U.S. wants to revive that production of that low-grade crude oil. It's not the sweet type that the U.S. is producing, since we are the largest producer of oil in the world. Now, the U.S. wants to revive the production out of that oil from Venezuela, and open up global markets for refining in diesel and low-grade products that oil from Venezuela can help produce. Politicians are looking at getting a chance to get American businesses to revitalize Venezuela oil infrastructure, which is deteriorated. Now, there's also a lot of problems going with the socialist governments there, and adversaries like Russia and Iran that have led to U.S. sanctions and interventions before. We've got U.S. wanting to combat drug trafficking, and Maduro's human rights abuses are justifications, but it's not. I mean, this is secondary to what oil is. I mean, they killed everybody in those boats, and it's just for a show, just to start things up before you can do his oil deal. I mean, the petrodollar system, which you mentioned, relies on oil being priced and traded in U.S. dollars, giving the U.S. significant financial leverage. It's not about, it's not destroying the dollar right now. Securing Venezuela heavy crude could stabilize supply, impacting global oil prices and potentially strengthen U.S. energy independence and indirectly affecting the dollar's role in energy markets. Now, looking at the U.S. actions in Venezuela's BRICS appeal. Now, Venezuela had an application into BRICS. Thank God it didn't join BRICS, because then we would have Russia and China trying to cause a war with us. The Trump administration accused Maduro of drug trafficking, demanding step down, leading to sanctions, seizing oil tankers, and military posturing in the Caribbean to combat cartels seen as Venezuela's regime change efforts. There's no cartels. Venezuela never had any drugs to begin with, outside of some stuff of cocaine, but it was never any fentanyl that was ever there in the first place. And then you look at the things that are happening within Russia and China, they're making complaints, but they're not going to do anything except see this as an option. Oh, we can potentially do something here, and they want the petrodollar system to be gradually taken out of the deal. And give a little history. The petrodollar was established in the 1970s with Saudi Arabia to have the oil traded in U.S. dollars, which has been something as a world reserve currency. But with Venezuela being under pressure from U.S. sanctions, the Venezuelan government's been an early proponent of using non-dollar currencies for oil sales, especially the Chinese petro-yuan since 2017. Well, it's going to give them an opportunity to sell a lot of oil, and the Chinese really want some cheap oil to exchange. The Cubans have been doing a lot of it. They've sent military advisors and doctors and that to Venezuela in exchange for oil because Cuba doesn't have oil. And now Cuba's in a lot of world of hurt with potentially their oil source going away. If Venezuela, with 18% of the world's proven oil reserve, were to join BRICS and sell its oil in alternative currencies, it would be a significant advance to the de-dollarization agenda and pose a major threat to the petrodollar system. Just like there's no confirmed U.S. invasion of Cuba this year or soon, but could be next year. But escalating tensions and hints from U.S. officials like Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, Cuba could be the next focus after U.S. military action in Venezuela has done the regime change and counter the Cuban-Russia-China alignment, potentially leading to increased pressure and covert actions on Cuba rather than a full-scale invasion, but I can't necessarily rule that out. Now, looking after what happens in Venezuela and the changes there, there's going to be U.S. American dominance, especially with Cuba seen as a failing state. And then looking at what China has started to look at pressuring economic and strategic influence in Latin America. And then we've got to look at all this with the U.S. invasion of Venezuela. It's no different than the banana wars of the 1930s. It's just no different. We've got to be able to look at this historically, and it's going to be where corporate America is getting their hands wrapped around with the government and getting what they want in foreign countries. Now, the United Nations done nothing really. They've talked about a Security Council meeting, but nothing has happened. I mean, it's really disappointing to have all these things going on. But I really beg each and every person here, get yourself involved somewhere. We've got to, raise the flag of all this atrocities that are happening and get involved, because no one wins in this. As I said, I was in the military 27 years. No one wins. For us in uniform, we're doing the job, but there's going to be so many lives on the line and lives lost as time goes along. And we cannot let this go in again, because there's always an easy way to get into a conflict, but getting out, it's hard. It's just like the proverbial tar baby. Once you start punching that thing to get what you want, you're getting more and more deeper and deeper into the turmoil aspects of it all. So you need to really get yourself and do something. Get out there and vote.